Yo, what is up, everybody? It's DFS Dudes back for the Saturday edition of the Deep Dive. Today is August the 31st, the last day in the month. We move on to September. We move on to the playoff push, pennant baseball playoffs, the start of the NFL season, and NBA on the horizon. Not a better time to purchase an all-access, all-sports with one membership. Our VIP membership is $29.99 a month. And we are running an NFL special, an NFL kickoff special. NFL 2019 is a promo code to get half off our annual membership. 12 months, $175. Not a better membership on the planet. Covering MMA. Not a lot of people doing that. NASCAR. Our boy Tyler Miller at Ricky Bobby Jr. Tons of experience previously from Sirius XM Radio. Breaks down the NASCAR slate every single weekend. We've got NFL, a ton of content for that. MLB, NBA, all sports, one membership. Use promo code NFL 2019 at checkout. Full access to our optimizer and all of the content. Let's get into today's slate. The last slate for the month of August. And it's a Saturday slate. And on Saturdays, these slates are typically broken up into, 4, 5. Sometimes it's just 2 or 3. But today there's a lot of slates that it's broken up. But there's still plenty of games on the main slate to get into. Let's just recap last night first. Bumgarner was my favorite pitcher. I said yesterday that I was not a big fan. I thought Aaron Nola was in a good spot. We looked at his previous starts. Nola pitched well. I didn't like that whole spot, man. I didn't like Wheeler. I thought it'd be a playoff type atmosphere. And, the Mets, they're clinging on, man, trying to make a push out of this. And I just didn't like the spot. I really, really liked Bumgarner. Told you guys that I thought he was one of my favorite plays. Strikes out 9 last night. Outstanding outing for him. And I thought Coors Field would go off. I thought Coors Field would go nuts last night. And it pretty much did. It pretty much did. I thought the Twins were a premier stack. They put up 13 runs last night. The Braves, I love. They put up 10 runs last night. Allard was another pick that I gave you guys. I wasn't fond of him pitching at Arlington, but it's a pick that I liked a lot. It's a play I liked a lot with using him with Coors Field. And Allard pitched well. He pitched well. So we pretty much mapped it out for you yesterday. We'll try and do the same thing again today. So let's get into the main slate. What does it look like? Who's on it? Where do we want to target? We've got Coors Field on this main slate. We've got Coors Field in the main slate. So it kind of, I don't want to say it gets boring. But when you have Coors Field on the main slate and you've got subpar pitching options, in my opinion, you've got to load up Coors Field. You can't say I'm going to fade Coors Field on any night, especially in the summer. You have to get exposure to it in some form or fashion. It's all about figuring out how you're going to get that exposure. On this main slate, we've got some good pitching options. Kershaw's 11.5 on FanDuel. Strasburg's 11.2 on FanDuel. He faces Miami. Sonny Gray, he's 10.7. You got Joey Lucchesi pitching at Oracle Park. So there's some good pitching options on the slate. And when you've only got kind of those options at the top of it, and then you've got a bunch of guys that look, Brock Burke. Who knows who Brock Burke is? How many of you guys know who Brock Burke is? How many of you guys know who Logan Webb is? Tim Melville. Brian Johnson is going to pitch for Boston tonight. Brian Johnson, this guy, if you pop open his player card and just take a look at his starts, he has only pitched more than 3 innings once. That was June 22nd at Toronto. He pitched 5 innings, struck out 4, 27 fantasy points. But that's it, man. He pitches between 2 2/3 and 3 innings. The Angels in a good spot again. I thought the Angels and Red Sox were in great spots last night. They played 15 innings. Boston won 7-6. Last night, though, I would be remiss if I didn't say this. I told you guys to stack the Baltimore Orioles. I told you guys stack Baltimore. I said Skoklin is terrible. Baltimore is sneaky. Nobody's going to own Baltimore. They went 14-2 last night. Baltimore against the notorious Jorge Lopez here. Again today. And you look at Lopez, and this guy struggles to get past 2 innings. I shouldn't say he struggles, okay? He's a spot starter type guy, and he'll probably pitch 2 innings today. He's terrible. I like Baltimore again today. I think Dylan Bundy's a very, 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 very sneaky tournament play today. Not because I think Kansas City's bad. Look, Kansas City's got 4 really solid bats in that lineup. Soler can hurt any pitcher on any slate at any time. Alex Gordon is quite possibly the second best Royal to ever play for that franchise. Some would argue that Bo Jackson because of the fame of Bo Jackson, but George Brett, number 1. Alex Gordon is loved in Kansas City, and he's having a really good year there. And then Dozier and Merrifield. Obviously Mondesi, but Mondesi is not in play right now. He's on the IL. But Bundy is not a terrible pitcher. He hasn't ever been a terrible pitcher in his career. He's never really lived up to the hype. 25 starts, he's 6-13. He's got 8 quality starts. He's a sneaky little GPP play today. Especially at his price, especially with Coors Field, especially with the pitchers pitching at Coors Field. So, Miami's at Washington, Strasburg against Pablo Lopez. You've got to like Strasburg here. It's a steep price. It's 11-2. Strasburg's 15-5, 17 quality starts this year. Very high quality start percentage. The guy gets into the 6th inning very frequently. April 21st against Miami, 67 fantasy points. A completely different Miami lineup now, though. Completely different Miami lineup now. June 27th, 27 fantasy points. They got him for 4 earned runs. And then his very next start was against Miami, July 3rd. 7 1/3, 14 strikeouts, 74 fantasy points. It's fair to say that Strasburg has had some success this year against the Miami Marlins. Is he the top pitcher on this slate? It's 11-2 with Coors Field in the slate. Upside? Yeah, he may be number 1 from an upside standpoint. Baltimore, Kansas City, we talked about it. I think Bundy's very, very sneaky. I think it's a sneaky pick. Don't go crazy with exposure. You know, if you're a single entry player and you're gonna play a bunch of single entry tournaments, I might put Bundy in one of those single entries and get some bigger bats. If you're a tournament player, a max enter player, and you're going to play 150 lineups today, like in the quarter or the $5.55 tournament, or if you're a bigger player and you're going to play, like the $9, use Bundy in like 10%, 5% of your lineups. Get some limited exposure to him because of the upside. If Bundy gets you 35 fantasy points at 7.3, he's in the same exact spot where we used Tanaka at this price a few days ago. He's at the same exact price as some of the guys I recommended last night, like an Allard. I mean, just think about this for a second. No quality start yesterday for Allard, but at 7,000, he goes 5 2/3 and strikes out 4. I mean, is that absolutely outstanding? No. It's not outstanding, but just some quick math. And 25 fantasy points. $7,000 price tag. The upside you're able to get with that, I mean, come on. Didn't like Fried. I told you I didn't like Fried last night. I didn't like it. One was because I just didn't think he was good. I thought that they would cap him off with the amount of innings that he pitched. He just wasn't a guy who was going deep into games. He hasn't been that guy. So Bundy's in the same kind of category. Cincinnati, Sonny Gray against Michael Wacha. Look. My gut tells me to stack up St. Louis in the spot because people are going to hop on the Gray train today. But he's in a really good spot. He's pitched really well. He's pitched really well here. Just in the month of August, 46 fantasy points against the Braves, 7 strikeouts over 7 innings. 49 fantasy points against the Cubs, 7 strikeouts over 6 innings. Against this St. Louis team, at home in Great American Small Park, 10 Ks in 5 innings, no earned runs, 51 fantasy points. At home against the Padres at Great American Small Park. Strikes out 10, goes 6 innings, gets you a win, a quality start, 55 fantasy points. 6 strikeouts, 6 innings pitched against Miami. He gave up 2 earned runs, 40 fantasy points. Miami is so freaking pesky, it's not even funny. If you just want to be super contrarian today and you're going to play a bunch of lineups, you could load up Miami and St. Louis in a 4x4 stack with Clayton Kershaw. And nobody will have that. Nobody will have that. And the reason you do that is you would do that because of the ownership to get field leverage on a stack that if it does happen to go off, you're not putting all your eggs in that basket. I'm just saying from a field leverage standpoint, if you built a couple lineups today that were Miami and St. Louis, you only will probably own those. But Gray in a good spot, right? I mean, he's pitched well this season. Michael Wacha, not a fan. Just not a fan of this guy. I don't think he's a good pitcher. 23 starts this year. He's 6-6 with a 5.24 ERA. Only 87 strikeouts in 103 innings pitched. He hasn't gone more than 5 innings in a very, very long time. You'd have to go back to the month of June. July 4th at Seattle, 3 1/3. The 19th, an inning and 2/3 against Cincinnati. 3 innings against Pittsburgh. 4 2/3 against Houston. 3 2/3 against the Dodgers. 5 against Cincinnati. That was against Sonny Gray. 4 against the Brewers. And 4 2/3 against Colorado at home. He's striking some guys out. He's just all over the map here. He's all over the map. Not a lot of innings. There's not the win and quality start upside with him, in my opinion. So he's not really in play here. Dallas Keuchel for the Astros against Reynaldo Lopez for the White Sox. All I'm going to tell you, man. I'm sorry, Dallas Keuchel for the Braves. All I'm going to tell you here is Reynaldo Lopez, I've used him probably 6 times this year. I used him against Texas. I recommended him against Oakland. I recommended him against Miami. And that's the Braves, man. I'm going to say the same thing I said last night. The Braves are in a good spot. Reynaldo Lopez is not a solid pitcher. He can go get you a quality start. He definitely can do that. Reynaldo Lopez is what you would call a serviceable veteran pitcher here on a team that is not going anywhere. Just a guy you can count on. You can roll him out there. He can go 5-6 innings. If he pitches well, he can go deeper into a game. He's an innings eater. That's what he is. They have a very bad bullpen. The Braves are really good stack today. Don't load up Reynaldo Lopez. I don't feel great about Keuchel either, so I don't want anything to do with that. I would focus, to be honest with you, on the White Sox side of this. Kershaw is in the desert, and this feels like a trap. Like a huge trap for both these guys. Clayton Kershaw, 11-5 on FanDuel, Robbie Ray, 9,100 on FanDuel. Kershaw, I say it every time this guy's in the slate. The model of consistency this year and what this Dodgers pitching staff has done this year, it's nothing short of remarkable. Kershaw has pitched at least 6 innings in every start this year, and he's pitched into the 7th inning at least half the time. It's what he's done. It's just what he's done. This entire pitching staff, you start with Ryu. Yeah, he's had a couple of terrible starts. Walker Buehler, look what they're getting out of Gonsolin. And then the leader of it, Clayton Kershaw. I mean, this pitching staff has pitched really, really good this year. 11-5 for Kershaw in the desert. It just does not feel good, though. It doesn't feel good. It feels like a trap to me. And we'll talk more about that in a second. I'll come back to Kershaw when we talk about pitching. Pittsburgh's at Colorado. Tim Melville. Who knows who Tim Melville is against Joe Musgrove? This should be a run fest. You don't want anybody in this game who's pitching on your roster, and you want all the bats you can get. Seattle at Texas again. Brock Burke will pitch for Texas. He's a lefty. He's 0-1. He's pitched in 2 games this year, 6 innings in each of them, 9 strikeouts over 2 starts, only 1 earned run. He pitched against the Angels on August 20th, and he started against the White Sox on August 25th. 34 fantasy points in each start. I think Brock Burke is a guy that could be popular tonight. The price tag of 7.6 allows you to do a lot of stuff. It's a really good tournament pick against a Seattle team that is... Seattle is not... I don't know what the hell they're doing up there. This team starts out on fire, and then they just start trading people away. I mean, it's like they're trying to be bad in Seattle. They just started trading people. I mean, they got rid of half their roster this year. They're putting runs up on everybody. They got a little hurt. They have a problem with their pitching staff. But they were putting up a ton of runs early in the season. So Brock Burke against Tommy Milone. Somebody's going to open this game. Tommy Malone's going to pitch. Texas is in a good spot here. I think Brock Burke is in a good spot here. High upside guy. I'll talk about him more in a second as well. The Padres at the Giants. Lucchesi against Webb. I like both these guys tonight. Logan Webb, young arm, tore up the minor leagues, earned this spot, got his way through his last start, gave up 4 earned runs. He gave up 2 bombs to Canna. His first start against Arizona in the desert, 7 strikeouts over 5 innings, 1 earned run, a win, 39 fantasy points. This guy's really good. This guy's a future 2 or 3 starter for them. Number 2 or number 3 starter. So, Lucchesi did get roughed up earlier in the year at Oracle. But Lucchesi's a guy, Lucchesi's a good young pitcher, man. The Padres are in a really good spot with that roster. I know a lot of people give Machado a lot of grief for going to San Diego and $300 million and nobody else is going to give it to you. You went to the Padres because they gave it to you. No. Machado went there because they've got a lot of talent on that team. They pick up a premier player at the deadline, a premier prospect at the deadline from Cincinnati for Franmil Reyes. They've got Tatis, Machado, they've got Lucchesi, Paddock. They've got some young arms, talent all around. They're in a good spot. Lucchesi's a good pitcher. A bigger ballpark, he gets a boost. Against the Giants this year, pitched against them back on July 26th, went 6 innings, struck out 8. That was at Petco Park. At Oracle Park, June 12th, 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, 34 fantasy points. The rough start was his 3rd start of the season. 4 innings, gave up 7 earned runs, 3 fantasy points, managed to still strike out 4. But Lucchese's, this is a guy that could get you 30 fantasy points tonight. He could strike out 5-6 guys and allows you to get some big bats. And the offense is where it's at today. I'm going to tell you that right now. The offense is where it's at today. Especially, this is a Coors Field slate. So you've got Coors Field on the slate. And if we look at from a weather standpoint, is there anything to be worried about? Is there any boost to bats or pitching with weather tonight? Well, it's 82 degrees in Philadelphia. Give a boost to the bats there. I think the wind is supposed to blow in pretty heavy from 8 to 15 miles per hour in Washington, and that boosts Strasburg quite a bit. I think that you look at the weather, 85 degrees in Atlanta, and I just don't take a pitching option in Atlanta tonight. And Coors Field, it's 90 degrees. It's 90 degrees. There was a series with the Giants a couple of weeks ago. It may have been last month. It was 90 degrees, 93 degrees, and there was just an insane amount of runs. And then they followed up with the series of the Dodgers where it was the same temperature, and the Dodgers and Rockies put up a ton of runs. It's going to be 90 degrees there tonight at first pitch. It's a huge boost to the bats. That's about it for weather, right? I mean, that's where the boost is. Coors Field, all things point to Coors Field tonight. Bad pitching, warm weather, altitude. So where do you go? Who do you stack them with? The other stacks that I like on this slate, Pittsburgh and Colorado are number 1, number 2. I like Atlanta. I like the Rangers. I like the Red Sox and Angels. I like the Orioles again. And I like the Texas Rangers. Pittsburgh, Colorado, Atlanta, Washington, Boston, Anaheim, Baltimore, Texas. Those are my 8 teams today. That's my top 8. Pittsburgh, Colorado, Atlanta, Washington, Boston, Anaheim, Baltimore, and Texas. I think there's some other teams in some good spots if you want to sprinkle some exposure in there. I think that you could be extremely contrarian with the Cardinals against Sonny Gray. I don't think they can go out there and put up 10 runs, so I'm not that huge on this contrarian spot. And here's the thing. In my opinion, when Coors Field is on the slate and there's bad pitching with bad bullpens and warm weather, you could stack the world with the 2 teams at Coors Field. There's no need to be contrarian. Just get as much exposure to those guys as you possibly can. If Coors Field is not on the slate, that's where you're looking for spots to be more contrarian, in my opinion. If Coors Field wasn't on the slate, I would probably get a little bit more exposure to some of these contrarian spots. I'd be looking at St. Louis. I'd be looking at Cincinnati. I'd be looking at the White Sox. But I don't think you have to do that on this slate. Just don't think it's going to be about getting the pitching options right and the right stack combinations with Coors Field. That's what it's going to be about today. So those are my top 8 bats or stacks. Pittsburgh, Colorado, Atlanta, Washington, Boston, Anaheim, Baltimore, and Texas. That's the order I like them in as well. From a pitching standpoint, let's break this down a little bit. From a pricing standpoint, Kershaw seems to be the highest priced pitcher, followed by Strasburg, Gray. Then you've got Robbie Ray, Dallas Keuchel, Joey Lucchesi at 7.8, Brock Burke at 7.6. Kershaw scares me in the desert. I don't know. It's Clayton Kershaw. He looks really good on this slate. But where's the bat upside that you're going to get around this? You're going to have to stack up. You got it with Baltimore. I mean, look, Baltimore has some value there. Okay? Let's talk about who you could stack up on Baltimore to get your value spots. Hanser Alberto's 2,900. Nunez is 3,300. VR's 3,500. Richie Martin 2,000. Dwight Smith Jr. is 2,600. Santander 3,000. So there's Mancini's 3,600. He's been all the way up to like 4,200 this year. So there's some value in Baltimore. That's part of the reason why I like them. The other part is it looks to be a bullpen game. And you're starting with Jorge Lopez. So ranking out pitching options for me, I'm going to tell you again, there's some value that I really like. I think that these guys in the 7,000s, Lucchesi, Brock Burke, they're in play. Drop down a little bit more, Dylan Bundy at 7,300, in play. Logan Webb at 6,600 is in play. And then these top three guys are all in play. I mean, Kershaw, Strasburg, and Gray are all in play. Okay? It's just a different type of build. You need to stack a Coors team with some value, like Baltimore, get some Texas bats in there. There's still some value with the Washington Nationals. With the Washington Nationals, you talk about from a value standpoint, Matt Adams is 2,800, Yan Gomes is 2,700, Howie Kendrick is 2,600, Kurt Suzuki's 2,300. So there's some good value there. Dozier's 2,400. Obviously, Rendon, there's the big dogs as well. Cabrera, though, at 2,800, a good play. And the outfield spot, Adam Eaton is 3,600. Victor Robles, 3,200. So there's some value there as well. You got to look and see how that lineup confirms. But the pitching options to me, I'll cover them really quick once again. Pitching options and the bats. Kershaw, Strasburg, Gray, all in play, all fine options. Value, to be different, Lucchesi at 7.8, Brock Burke at 7.6, Dylan Bundy at 7.3, and don't go buck wild on Dylan Bundy. It's an upside play at 7.3. It's a play I like, though. Logan Webb at 6,600. Those are the pitching options. The stacks: Pittsburgh, Colorado, Atlanta, Washington, Boston, Anaheim, the Orioles, and the Rangers. I will be back on Monday for another edition of the Deep Dive. Until then, be cool, keep it cashing. Peace out.